If you've been playing Fallout 4 for tens or perhaps even hundreds of hours, then there is possibly a good chance this video is going to be a little bit uncomfortable, and not because you don't know how the game works, but because in fact you actually do. Now, Fallout 4 has a way of letting experienced players sort of lock themselves into bad habits that feel efficient, right up until the point when you realise you spent tens of hours doing things the hard way. This video doesn't contain a list of beginner mistakes, like you've definitely not forgot how to use VATs, and you're definitely not running around in a vault suit with a pipe pistol wondering why everything hurts, and you're doing no damage to anyone. I mean, at least I hope you're not doing those things. But these are mistakes that experienced players make because you've actually played Fallout before. The kind where you say, yeah, I'll sort that thing later on, and then 30 levels pass and you're still saying it. So if you've ever looked at your perk screen and thought, I'll take that utility perk next level, or maybe you've stared at your inventory wondering why you're carrying the contents of a small scrapyard, then this video might hit a little too close to home. So without further ado, let's get stuck into those mistakes that even experienced Fallout players are making. Now let's start with the mistake that almost every experienced Fallout player has probably made at least once in one of their playthroughs, and that is putting off utility perks because they don't really feel that exciting. And I will go out on a limb here and say that Local Leader is probably one of the biggest offenders here. It doesn't increase your damage, it doesn't give you flashy new abilities, it doesn't unlock higher level mods or locks, and because of that, a lot of veteran players treat it like a later problem, saying, you know what, future me can deal with that. But the issue is, future you never unlocks it. You keep telling yourself that you'll grab it after maybe one more damage perk, then one more survivability perk, and suddenly you're level 30 manually hauling junk across the Commonwealth like it's your second job. Supply lines don't just connect settlements, they connect to your time. The moment you unlock them, crafting becomes much easier, settlement building becomes faster, and inventory management stops being a constant interruption or a pain in the ass. So sure, Local Leader doesn't make you stronger on paper, but it removes a lot of the friction from almost everything else that you do. And the longer you delay getting it, the more effort you waste compensating for actually not having it in the first place. Which brings us nicely to another early game habit that feels harmless, but it really isn't. And that is water farming. Sure, a lot of experienced players know that water farming exists, they just kind of don't bother with it early enough, or even at all, to be honest. And that's a mistake, because clean water is one of the most reliable, most low effort income sources in Fallout 4, especially in the early game. So it starts paying off almost immediately. But the problem is, it doesn't really feel that important at first, wouldn't you say? Like you want to go out exploring, looting, fighting, and water purifiers feel like something you'll optimize later, but every level you delay setting them up is a level where you're doing more work than you actually need to do. Early on, water farming quietly solves multiple problems at once, like getting your caps, healing, and vendor limitations without asking for much in return. Sure, it's not flashy, it's not exciting, it doesn't give you a big weapon to tear through super mutants at the blink of an eye, but it is one of those systems where experienced players suffer specifically because they know the game well enough to put it off. Now this one is almost a reflex for veteran players out there. You know what weapons you like, you roughly know what perks work for your specific builds, but the moment you actually come to level up, your brain kind of goes, yes, you know what I need? More damage, obviously. But the problem is that early on in Fallout 4, it rarely demands maximum damage. Instead, what it actually demands is consistency, so things like survivability, utilities, carry weight, crafting access. These things smooth out the entire experience far more than squeezing out a bit of extra damage at level 8. So overinvesting in damage perks early on doesn't really make the game that much easier, it just kind of delays the moment where everything sort of clicks into place, and it usually leads to players compensating in weird ways, which actually ties directly into another common misconception. A lot of experienced Fallout players subconsciously treat higher difficulties like the AI suddenly went to night school with the SAS. They play slower, they play safer, and they assume that every enemy is about to pull off something tactical, but Fallout 4 doesn't really work like that. Higher difficulties mostly change numbers, not behaviour, so in a nutshell, That means that enemies hit you harder, and you hit them softer at the same time, and that's about it. When players assume that enemies are smarter, they often overcorrect by taking fewer risks, burning more resources, and stretching fights longer than is actually necessary. And once you understand what actually changes when you lift up the difficulty, you can stop treating every encounter like a chess match and start playing more efficiently once again. And efficiency becomes even more important once you realize just how much time the game lets you waste in other aspects. Because once these habits are locked in, they start creeping into how you loot, sell, and manage your inventory, and that's where things really begin to spiral downwards. Fallout 4, and to be honest, most Bethesda games, train you very early on to grab literally everything that isn't nailed down to the floors or the walls. And that instinct never really goes away, even when you reach the point where you absolutely do not need 300 units of asbestos. A lot of experienced players, and I am definitely guilty of this as well, carry crafting materials just in case they might need it, but we never actually stop to check what we're going to craft anymore. And this results in an inventory that's consistently overweight, or on the borderline of being overweight, and a playstyle built around managing the problem that doesn't actually need to exist in the first place. If you're not actively using certain crafting stations or mods, those materials are basically just dead weight. Literally. In some instances, hoarding may feel efficient, but most of the time, it's just future planning for things that actually never happen. Alright, this one is kind of sneaky because on the surface it looks like a bit like smart play. You can sell weapons, you can sell armor, you can sell chems, and in return you get caps and everyone's happy. Except caps aren't usually the thing holding you back, and instead, it's time. Many experienced players sell items they should probably be scrapping instead, and they're keeping items that aren't actually doing them any favours whatsoever. Scrapping things gives you control, and not to mention resources, whereas selling gives you a number that feels useful, sort of temporarily, and Fallout 4 is very good at making you feel productive, whilst quietly wasting your time, well, at the same time. And this is actually where a lot of inventory bad habits, well, stem from. Players see caps as the ultimate resource, so pretty much everything they do revolves around maximizing that resource. But basically, past the early game, caps are rarely the limiting factor. Like vendor stock, carry weight, and travel time matter far more. And if you're doing extra trips, juggling items, or micromanaging sales just to squeeze out a few more caps, what you're actually doing is paying for it with time, and you can never get that time back. Efficient play in Fallout 4 isn't about being rich, it's more about being fast and efficient. And nothing saves more time in Fallout 4 than weight reduction, or perhaps more accurately, investing in strength. A lot of experienced players treat carry weight perks and mods as optional, and something that you'd only take if you've got a few points to spare, but reducing how often you have to stop, how often you have to sort, how often you have to drop or fast travel, does more for your overall progress than most combat perks ever will. Like, look guys, I get it, these perks don't make for exciting combat, but it does quietly remove friction from almost every single other system in the game, and once you stack a few of these things together, the game starts flowing differently. You'll be stopping less, there'll be less backtracking, and more of actually just playing Fallout 4. And once you stop fighting your inventory and the economy, you start to notice something else Fallout 4 is very good at, giving you way too much to do if you let it. If, like me, you've played through Fallout 4 more than once, or you've had a single playthrough that goes on for perhaps hundreds of hours, then the chances are you already know exactly how settlement building works, and that's exactly why this mistake can happen. Experienced Fallout players tend to overbuild early because they can, and they probably know exactly how to do it. You'll know what generators you'll need, where your defenses should go, how everything connects, so you just start doing it. But the problem is, early on, overbuilding doesn't really give you anything back. It consumes a lot of time, a boatload of resources, and it takes a lot of your attention before the game actually asks for it. The settlements in the game are most useful when they support your playthrough, not when they become your playthrough. Fallout 4 doesn't punish you for minimal settlements, it just never says that out loud. I mean, Lord knows I don't spend that much time on my settlements beyond setting up supply lines between them so I can access the junk from most of them. I mean, sure, some players like to obsess about overbuilding these settlements, maybe even for YouTube videos, but if you want to have an efficient playthrough, overbuilding them early on is not the way to go about it. There are a lot of different systems in Fallout 4, and the game throws them at you almost straight away. So, like crafting, settlements, factions, radiant quests, and it's all basically there from the start, or at least maybe the first 5 or so hours. And many experienced players assume that they're meant to fully engage with absolutely every single one of them almost immediately. But the reality is a little bit different because Fallout 4 is modular. You're not expected to optimize absolutely affecting everything in a single playthrough. What you might need to hear is that you are allowed to ignore some systems that don't support how you want to play the game. I mean, sure, over-engaging can feel productive, but often it just spreads your attention thin and ultimately slows everything else down. Like, the game never tells you that, but it also never punishes you for stepping back and just having a look at the bigger picture and figuring out what you want to dive more into and what you don't mind leaving aside for a little bit. Another trap you veteran players out there fall into is trying to do things in what feels like the right order. Maybe you'll avoid certain quests and you hold other ones back for later, and before you realize it, you've unintentionally made the mid-game harder than it actually needed to be in the first place. Some quests give rewards that are far more useful early on, whereas others scale in ways the game never really explains. Fallout doesn't stop you from doing things out of order, which I think is actually one of the best aspects of the game in my opinion, but the flip side of that is it also doesn't protect you from the consequences of doing that. And experienced players are often sort of the most cautious, which ironically leads to the least efficient outcomes. And this final one is probably the one that ties everything that I've already said together. One of the biggest mistakes experienced players make isn't a bad perk choice, it isn't a missed system, it isn't overbuilding settlements, it's playing the game on autopilot. By now, you guys know Fallout, you know the rhythms, so you stop questioning why you're doing things a certain way. I mean, Fallout 4 rewards intent far more than habit, so the moment you slow down and ask, is this actually helping my playthrough? The game does become smoother, it becomes faster, and a lot less frustrating. Not because you're playing the game perfectly, I mean, I don't think there is a way to play it perfectly, but instead because you're playing the game deliberately, and once you start doing that, Fallout stops feeling like a checklist and starts feeling like a bit more of a sandbox game again. Overall, Fallout 4 doesn't really punish bad builds, instead it punishes bad habits, and the longer you've played, the easier it is to slip into doing things out of routine instead of out of intent. None of these mistakes mean that you're playing the game wrong, but they do kind of mean you're playing it on autopilot, and Fallout 4 is a much better game once you stop playing it on autopilot. But anyway, to wrap this up, let me know in the comments which of these you're definitely guilty of. I know I'm definitely guilty of a few, or which one you've been telling yourself, you know what, I'll fix that in my next playthrough. And if you want more Fallout 4 videos that focus on playing smarter and not grinding harder, I'll probably have another video queued up soon, so it'd be totally awesome if you could support my channel by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. And I also have a bunch of Fallout 4 videos already on my channel similar to this, so go check those out as well. Well, basically, thank you for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in my next one. And don't forget, folks, if your inventory weighs more than your character, it might be time to rethink a few things.